Our one box, one car kit is the easiest way to upgrade your stock cart. This box contains an LED light kit, a turn signal assembly kit, a set of wheels and tires, a rear seat kit, a 5-panel mirror, and lug nuts. First thing you want to do is switch the cart to the off position, engage the parking brake, and switch it into tow mode. You'll notice we're at the front of the cart. We're going to take off the front wheels and the front bumper. You're going to take a screwdriver and remove the cover. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to loosen our lug nuts on both sides. Now go ahead and lift your cart up and place jack stands under the frame. Now you can completely remove your tires. Now using a 13mm socket and a 10mm wrench, we're going to remove the front bumper from the cart and retain the hardware. Now using a 13mm socket, you're going to remove the 4 bolts that hold the spring plate to the spring and the main frame. Now using a pry bar, you're going to pry between the frame and the spring far enough so you can slide in your low pro block. Using the supplied hardware, secure the spring plate back to the spring and the main frame. You want to make sure that the grooves in the low pro block line up with the holes. Use a 17mm socket to secure. Now using a 13/16 socket, we're going to install our new wheels and tires using the supplied lug nuts. Once all 4 lugs are in place, then tighten. Since we have access to the space, we're going to install our horn to the bolt located here under the front cowl. This is on the driver's side. We're going to remove this bolt out, put our horn to it, and reattach the bolt. We'll hook this up to the harness later. If you're installing a converter or reducer and need a flat metal surface to attach it to, look under the front cowl here and attach it to the front frame. Do this before you put the headlight in, have a lot more room. Now you're going to attach your headlight. You'll notice the 2 tabs on the back side of the headlight. Those will go into the frame. You're going to use the hardware retained from earlier to secure it. Once both bolts are in place, tighten your hardware. To install our bucket harness, you're going to remove the 2 screws located on the floor mat retainers and retain. Now you can remove your floor mat, remove your brake access cover and retain. Remove and retain the trim ring around your charge port. Take a small screwdriver and press on the inside here. Now we're going to remove the seat cushion and remove and retain the 2 screws located at the front of the battery box. Now we're going to remove and retain the 3 bolts located across the front trim. Pull the trim piece out of the way for now, and we're going to run our bucket harness. The 12-pin connector will go to the front of the cart. For now, we're just going to lay it over the front of the cowl. The brake wires will run to the brake panel. The black and blue power wires will go into the battery box. And the 2 3-pin connectors for the brake lights will go into the battery box and then through the back rear body. The 3-pin connector with the yellow wire needs to go to the passenger side. The black male bullet connector will attach to the black female bullet connector that comes out of the OBC here to the back of the battery box. The blue connector will connect to the number 4 battery negative. Most carts already have a small pigtail here. If it doesn't, simply clip off the spade end here and put a 5/16 ring terminal and touch it straight to the battery. You want to pull your bucket harness into the battery well so that the fuse assembly is in between the batteries. We're going to run our brake wire down the channel and into the panel here. Now you can replace your trim. Using the supplied screws, we're going to attach the brake pad to the brake. Now you're going to feed the brake pad harness down through the front side of the brake pedal here and attach it to our bucket harness. You'll notice 3 wires on the harness, 2 wires on the brake pedal harness. You're only going to plug in the bullet connectors and disregard the black spade. Be sure to keep the harness outside of the floor mat. Now you can reattach your brake pedal assembly cover. Now you can reinstall your floor mat, reattach your screws to your body, put your trim cover back in, but leave the seat off for now. And finally, reinsert the screws for your side skirts. Remove and retain the dash panel by taking out the 2 screws as well as the one in the top. You're going to use a T30 Torx bit and a T15. Now we're going to feed our 12-pin harness behind the dash. You're going to attach the gray wire here to the gray wire on the cart. Now you're going to attach the 12-pin light harness to the 12-pin bucket harness. Then you're going to feed the 6-pin from your light harness down through the front of your dash. Then you're going to attach the 9-pin from your upgrade harness to the other side of your light harness. At this point, you're going to have a red and a black switch. The black switch was your original light kit switch. This is not going to be used anymore. You can just tuck it behind the dash or tape it off. The red switch will now be your hazard switch. We're going to install this in the front dash. Go ahead and take the 2 wires off the back. Notice the gray behind the circle and the yellow in the middle. Using a 15-30 seconds drill bit, locate the dimple off to the right side of the key switch and drill through the dash. Make sure you don't hit any wires on the back side and use safety glasses. Remove the nut off the back side of your hazard switch, insert it through the dash and reinsert your nut. Now you're going to reattach your wires. Push all the wires into the dash cavity and reattach your dash using the hardware retained. Secure your turn signal assembly to the steering column using the supplied clamps and screws. Now you can snap on the cover for the back side of the signal assembly. Feed any excess loom behind the dash. Then you're going to take your column cover and trim it to the appropriate length of your column. To install your rear tail lights, you're going to measure up 1.5 inches from the top side of the underbody and make a horizontal line, and measure 2.25 over from the point right where the body starts to curve around and make a horizontal line. You can either use a 1.5 inch hole saw and cut out your hole, or a cutting tool. Make sure you wear your safety glasses. You're going to feed your bucket harness through the hole and attach your light. Now you're going to attach your tail light to your harness. You may need a wire snake to pull the wire all the way through the hole. Then you're going to remove the sticky sided tape, stick it to the cart, and then secure at the 2 hole locations with the hardware provided. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, using the supplied zip ties, you're going to secure your bucket harness to your battery pack. Once your harness is secured, you can reinstall your seat cushion. Now you're going to attach the 6-pin from the back side of your headlight to the 6-pin harness that we fed down through the dash. And then the orange and black wire from the back side of your headlight will attach to the horn on either tab, doesn't matter which one. You're going to use the remaining zip ties and secure the 6-pin harness. Using a flathead screwdriver, we're going to pop off the rear hubcaps and then loosen the lug nuts on both rear tires. Go ahead and lift the rear of the cart and place jack stands under the frame in front of the rear springs. Now you can go ahead and remove your rear tires. Before we loosen any bolts, you want to make sure that your floor jack is supporting the rear axle like we have here. Now you're going to remove the nut on the bottom side of the shock and the tube nuts on the bottom side of the U-bolts that hold the axle to the spring. You're going to use a 9/16 socket on the shock and a 5/8 socket on the U-bolt. Be sure to retain all of your hardware. Now you can remove the U-bolt and the bracket below the spring. Using a 10mm socket and a 13mm wrench, we're going to remove and retain the front bolt that holds on the spring. We're going to do the same thing on the 2 rear bolts. One thing to remember about the rear springs is that the rear nut here is offset to the back, so you'll have a shorter end to the back side of the cart. Using the supplied bushings and sleeves, install them into your spring, as well as the top shackle on the rear of the cart. For the newer Precedents with the straight shackles, you'll use the 2 remaining longer sleeves to replace the bushings up top. If you have an older Precedent that has tapered rear shackles, you'll need to use the 2 13/022s. You want to hand tighten the hardware on the top shackle. You may need to adjust these rear shackles when putting in the leaf spring. Now we're going to install our new leaf spring. Before you replace the nut on the front spring bolt, make sure that you attach your brake cable to the bolt. Tighten your hardware. Tighten the 2 rear bolts. Using the new U-bolt, you're going to attach the rear axle to the rear bracket using the retained hardware. You're going to use the hole located here and match it up with the nut on the bottom side of the spring. Make sure that the bolt on the top side of the rear spring goes inside the hole of the rear axle here. Once you get the U-bolt through the rear bracket, go ahead and tighten both nuts up. Make sure you tighten both nuts equally. Now we're going to reattach our shock to the rear bracket. Notice how I'm using the floor jack by picking up the axle and lowering it to help me with this process. Now I'm going to install the new wheel and tire. Make sure all 4 nuts are in place before tightening. And then repeat this process on the other side. Now we're going to install our rear seat kit. First thing we're going to do is remove our sweater basket and our bag cover. We're going to remove and retain our front seat cushion. You can remove your canopy or use a brace to hold it in place. Just be sure to retain your canopy hardware. Be sure to retain the seat cushion bolts as well as the bolts that hold the sweater basket to the underbody. Now we're going to attach the main seat frame to the 2 bolt hole locations here and here, using the retained hardware from our sweater basket. Once all 4 bolts are in place, then fully tighten. Using hardware from pack 1, attach the bottom of the bagwell bracket in through the bottom of the bagwell and the holes located at the outer corners. You're going to use the spacer and set the spacer in the bagwell first. You want the foot of the bagwell bracket pointed to the back of the cart, and the bagwell will be on the back side of the flat bracket of the seat frame. For 2015 and newer carts, you'll use the addendum hardware pack for this step. Hand tighten your hardware for now. Repeat the same thing on the other bagwell bracket, and then using the small bolts from hardware pack 2, attach the top of the bagwell to the main frame. Now we're going to attach the armrest to the outside of the frame using the hardware from pack number 3. At the back end of the frame, you're going to use the countersunk bolts to attach the long part of the armrest. Hand tighten your hardware. Place your support bar along the back side of the frame. Using the long bolts from pack 3, you're going to attach the armrest to the frame and the support bar all in one. On the second hole, you're going to install the rubber spacer in between the 2 and attach it with the other bolt. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Using the remaining hardware from pack 2, attach the footrest to the lower hole here of the bagwell brackets. Do not tighten the hardware. Now we're going to attach the footrest bracket to the footrest and the armrest. You'll notice the flat plate here and here. This side should go under the footrest and this portion should go behind the armrest. It is possible to have these mismatched, so just make sure you have the right orientation. Remember, at this point, all of our hardware should only be hand tightened. This gives us some more play in the footrest. We're going to install our rear struts. One thing to look for is the angled point here at the top. This is going to go towards the back of the cart. The strut will go in the hole at the top of the underbody on the back side of the frame. Using hardware from pack 6, we're going to use the 45mm bolts at the bottom and the 70mm bolts at the top. Reattach the gutters here to the canopy using the retained hardware from earlier. You can go ahead and tighten these bolts. At this point, we're going to tighten up all of our loose hardware. Using the hardware from pack 5, we're going to attach the seat back brackets to the seat back. You're going to lay the seat back flat on the cart. You'll notice that one of the brackets have driver's side labeled on the back side. What you're going to do is you're going to place the brackets on the back side of the seat cushion. The driver's side will actually go on the opposite side for now, because once we spin the cushion around, it'll be on the driver's side. You want to line up 2 of the holes and then hand tighten your hardware until both bolts are in place, and then you can tighten. Using the remaining hardware from pack 4, we're going to attach the seat cushion and brackets to the main support bar here. Once both bolts are in place, then tighten. Now we're going to reattach our front seat lean back using the hardware retained from earlier. Using the hardware from pack 6, we're going to attach the seat cushion to the flip frame. You'll notice on the seat cushion you have a thicker end and a shorter end. The thick end will go to the outside of the cart. At this point, you want to take the supplied strap and insert it between the seat cushion and the frame so that it secures and you can open up the flip portion. Once all bolts are in place, then tighten your hardware. To install the 5-panel mirror, first thing you want to do is place it inside the front struts here. You'll notice that we have the navigation system, so we're going to lower it down a little bit and mount it just slightly lower on the front struts. One thing you want to make sure of is that if you do have a windshield on, that it's not going to hit, but you can mount this mirror anywhere on the inside of the front struts to your liking. Once you're happy with your location, we'll take the angle brackets included with the kit and mark our mounting spot. You want to measure your mounting points and then do the same thing on the driver's side. Using a 7/64 drill bit, you're going to drill 2 pilot holes for your mounting screws. Be sure to wear safety glasses. Using the supplied mounting screws, mount your angle brackets to the strut. Attach the slide bracket to the angle bracket on the inside. You're going to use the supplied carriage head bolts, lock washer, and nut. You'll notice the slide bracket has a cup. The cup will face to the inside of the cart. You'll insert the carriage bolt into this first, and then into your angle bracket. Next, your lock washer, and then your nut. Use the 10mm socket to tighten. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Before we install the mirror, we're going to insert the nuts into the knob. You want to use a pair of pliers or a flathead screwdriver and push the nut all the way down inside the knob here. To attach the mirror to the brackets, first thing you're going to do is take the long carriage bolt included with the kit and insert it into the driver's side hole here located by the mirrors. Then you're going to feed the passenger side, which has a threaded bolt on the other end, into the bracket to hold it in place. You're going to push the driver's side into the slide bracket. Then insert the lock washer. And then finally, the knob with our nut inside and tighten. The angle brackets are slotted so that you can adjust the bracket over to catch the mirror. Now you can make any final adjustments needed. With our one box, one car kit, you can take your cart from this to this.